I'm
Hello, I'm AARP New Jersey volunteer Carmen Falcon, and I want to welcome you to another AARP New Jersey Fraud Friday Facebook Live. Today we are joined by special guest Kate Kleinert. Kate is like any one of us. She wanted to help the person she loved. However, she came to realize that this person, her fiance Tony, was actually a con artist. After a whirlwind romance, which ended with a broken heart and the loss of $39,000, Kate is still experiencing the financial and emotional toll of this romance scam. Kate is opening up and sharing her experience so that other victims of fraud no longer hide in shame and instead report the crime. We want this to be an interactive discussion today, so if you have a question, please type it in the comments section and we will do our best to get it to it live. We're looking for a great conversation. Thank you again, Kate, for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about how you met Tony and what was your relationship like?
okay, sure. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate that. I met Tony on Facebook when he sent me a friend request. Now, I've been widowed for a number of years and I have gotten several of those kinds of requests, but I've never accepted them. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it was about Tony's that made a difference that day. We were in the lockdown from the pandemic. We had been locked down for several months at that point. I don't know if I was especially lonely right then,
Mm-hmm.
but he sent pictures supposedly of himself, of a very handsome man. Um, and of course, he had looked at my profile and said he was also interested in gardening and in dogs and what have you, the same as my profile said. So I guess I just threw caution to the wind and accepted his friend request that day. And we just started chatting back and forth casually.
Mm-hmm.
But then he kind of moved into the romantic scene pretty quickly. And I was not doing that because I had never met this man before.
Mm-hmm.
So after about a month, I guess, of sending messages back and forth, he asked me to download the Hangout app so that we could talk to each other on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I did that, and I've come to find out since then that Hangout is a an app that these scammers use because you can't trace where the calls are coming from.
Wow.
So, excuse me. So we ended up talking to each other 5 or 6 times a day. So it was so nice to talk to a man again and just to have those conversations like, how was your day? How are things going? How are you feeling today? It just filled a little part of my heart that was empty.
Okay. And did you have to pay for that app? Is that
Uh,
app free?
the app is free and the calls
Okay.
are free.
And so, but he was international?
He told me he was in Iraq, that he was working a contract through the UN, that he was an orthopedic surgeon, and he had been sent there to work on the injured soldiers. And that was about the only way we could communicate was through the app or through
So,
email.
so you never, when you were communicating with him, you only had a fixed picture of him, but never an actual virtual to see his expression when he was speaking with you.
He would never allow FaceTime or anything that would show his face. He said it was too dangerous where he was, which made some sense to me because
Okay.
of being in Iraq. But I've also, again, come to find out that that is a red flag with someone who is trying to start a relationship with you. If they won't have FaceTime, that's a red flag. If they won't show you their face, because obviously I would have then known the pictures he was sending were not of him.
Okay. So in prior conversations with you, you shared that Tony tells you that he's a single dad of two kids
Yeah.
and that he could really use some help, like especially from a mother figure. So what happened from there?
He asked me if the kids he had told the kids about me, and he said they were so excited that he had somebody in his life and that he was hoping that we could all become a family. And he said the kids wanted to call me mom. And how did I feel about that? And I said, no, it's too soon after their own mom's death. I don't want to get started on a wrong foot. Let's work up to that. It's too soon to just jump in and replace their mother. But supposedly the boy was 12 and the girl was 15, and Tony had told me he had been married to a much younger woman and had these two children. And that's why he was my age and had children that age. And they were in a boarding school in England while he was working off his contract in Iraq.
Wow. It's amazing that he shares this information with you. And so in prior conversations, you also shared that there was conversation of you actually meeting up with him. What happens when he says that he's supposed to arrive Philadelphia and meet you?
Well, after like I said, he became romantically involved much more quickly than I did, but he wanted to come here. I said, we can't do anything till we meet. We have no idea how this is going to go till we meet. So he said he wanted to put in for vacation time and come to Philadelphia to meet me, which sounded very nice to me. And the more we talked, the more excited I was getting about that. He wanted to get engaged. He wanted to look for houses. He was just taking this way further than I was. But he wore me down by saying such wonderful things to me, how much he loved me. He wanted to spend his life with me. And after a while, some part of me started to accept that and believe it.
Now, how long was these conversations you were having with him to the point that he said he's coming to Philadelphia? How long had it been, this conversation you were having with him?
I received his friend request in August, and by November, we were planning for him to come to Philadelphia.
And he had a passport, he had all this information, like he was not going to have any issue to come and see you.
He said not that that the UN would help him get here, that he had to ask permission. He even asked me to write a letter to his boss at the UN asking for time for him to be able to take off and come here, spend with me, and then we were going to go see the children in England. That it was a hardship for him to have been away all this time without seeing them or seeing me. We didn't say that he and I had just met, but that we were, wanted to see each other, and could he get some time off, which he finally did. But then he needed the airfare to get from Iraq to here, and promised me he would pay back every cent. I had already been sending him gift cards at that point for the kids, for he himself to get better signals, because the Wi-Fi was so bad where he was in Iraq. The food was so bad that if I sent him these gift cards, he was able to upgrade. And promised. The minute he got to Philadelphia, he would pay back every penny, and even sent me the sign-on to his bank account at Bank of America so that I could see that he had a very healthy bank account.
Did you actually do that?
I did. And I'll tell you what, it looks so authentic. I've never seen anything like it. These folks really know what they're doing.
So you actually went online. You didn't actually go to a bank location. You went online.
No, I didn't go to a bank location. He sent me the link and then sent me his sign-on. And of course, the link went to this created website that these people created with all of his information. His name came up when I signed on, and then when I put in the password, his balance came up, and it was over $2 million that he had as a balance. So of course I believed as soon as he got here, he would pay me back.
So, Kate, but was that in US dollars or foreign monies?
It was the Bank of America was the bank itself, and it was listed in US dollars.
Okay. Yeah. It's amazing what they're capable of doing. So let's get back to the fact that he's telling you that he's coming to Philadelphia and he's supposed to arrive in Philadelphia. what happened? I mean, did you hear from him? Was there some, by this time, are there other parties involved? Are you suspecting something?
I had not told my family about it, so in retrospect, I think I knew on some level that this might not be true. I didn't want to tell my family until he was here. And my family had a Christmas Zoom scheduled with our entire extended family. And that's when I was going to say, surprise, I've got this wonderful man in my life. Um, so Tony was supposed to be here, flying here on December the 10th. That morning, he sent me a picture, again, supposedly of himself in the airport in a casual, like jogger suit and his
Mhm.
suitcase, waving to me. And then he called me from the airport and said, "Oh, honey, I've got to go. They're calling my flight." But it was a UN flight. So I didn't have a flight number. I had no way of tracing the plane to find out if it was coming in on time. Oh, it's a private enterprise through the UN. So again, it was keeping me from checking on a flight number on an airline. He was supposed to be here by 10 o'clock that night in Philadelphia. I spent the day getting ready. I got my hair done, my nails done. I got all dressed up and had a bottle of champagne and two glasses waiting to go meet him at the airport. And at 10 o'clock, I'm like waiting for the phone call. And 11 o'clock, midnight, I'm thinking, all right, maybe they were delayed, whatever, this could happen. But I had no way of checking on the flight. By morning, I was frantic. I did not think it was a scam. I was worried that something had happened and that he was not going to be all right. Something had taken place. But around 8 o'clock in the morning, I received a phone call from another man who said he was Tony's lawyer, and that when Tony went to get his baggage from the carousel in Philadelphia, when he reached for it, two FBI agents stepped forward and arrested him because there were drugs in his bag, but that he didn't know anything about the drugs. He was not responsible, but there were drugs in the bag. And coming from Iraq, again,
Oh my
seemed
goodness.
it was possible. Now he wanted money for bail. And I was tapped out by that point. I had spent everything I had available to me. And the lawyer wanted $20,000 for bail. And I cried and said, I don't have it. Take out another mortgage on your house or sell your life insurance policy. I mean, there was a whole list of things. Sell your car, go to your family, go to a business and make a deal with them. And said that sort of thing doesn't, I can't walk into a business and make some kind of a deal for them to lend me money like that.
Right.
You know, and I asked if I could go see Tony since he was in Philadelphia. Oh no, no. Only he, the lawyer, could get in. And when I really pushed because it was getting closer to Christmas, he said Tony had been transferred because the prison was too crowded where he was in Philadelphia. Again, that could have been possible. And I said, where was he transferred to? Oklahoma. Oklahoma. Who gets transferred from Philadelphia to Oklahoma? So I don't think they had a real good knowledge of our geography here. And why would someone go from Philadelphia to Oklahoma? Um, so I really started to doubt the story, but I didn't want to. I had feelings for him by then. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to believe that he was doing this to me.
All right. So did you start, and you were saying that basically things flipped totally different from what you expected to happen, right?
Yes.
That you were going to go see him in Philadelphia. Now, did you eventually tell your sisters, you said earlier? Like, who did you report it to at this point?
No one at that point. Um, Tony started calling me again himself, but he was calling me several times a day, and I said, "How can you do this from jail? You can't. You don't have that much privilege to make that many phone calls a day. Oh, they're doing it because I'm involved with the UN. They're giving me special privileges. I said, doesn't work that way. So it was becoming unraveled more and more. But the more I realized that I had been taken, the more embarrassed I became. And the more withdrawn I became and didn't want to tell anyone that I had done something so absolutely stupid as to give this person all this money. Because I'm not financially comfortable to begin with.
Right.
But I gave him everything that I possibly had.
Okay. I'm feeling for you right now, and I know
I know, I know.
it's not been easy for you. It's really
So
really horrible.
I have a friend. I did not want to tell my sisters at all.
Uh-huh.
I have a friend who was calling me, excuse me, and she kept saying to me, "You sound sad. You sound like there's something wrong." And I'd say, "No, no, there's nothing wrong." She'd say, "I can tell by your voice that something's upsetting you. And I just feel like I need to ask you, do you want to talk about it? If you don't, I'm not going to push you, but do you need to talk about it?" Well, it took me a while before I finally just let it all out. She did not say that I was stupid or dumb or an idiot for allowing this to happen, but she encouraged me to tell my sisters. But that took me a while. I think it was March before I finally had the courage to tell my sisters. I had not reported it to the police at that point because I didn't want to have to tell them my story and have them yell at me for being
Right.
so stupid.
Now,
But
with this experience, I mean, has Ford changed you? This experience
absolutely,
changed you?
absolutely. I've learned that going to the police isn't always the right thing to do. I was scorned by the person at the state police who did not speak to me very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to know why in the world I was calling there because this wasn't a crime. I readily gave him this money, so it was my fault, not a crime. So that just kind of put me back several more steps, when I got that reaction. But I have I have never been rich or well off. I've always had a roof over my head and something to eat. But when this happened, I was suddenly without any money. It's a very scary feeling to know you can't go to the ATM and get anything out, that there's nothing there. There's not even $10 in the ATM for you to take out for something. That I was overdrawn, my bank account was overdrawn, my credit cards were maxed out. I was in a bad place financially and was afraid I was going to lose my house.
Wow.
And it just I didn't have money to go get groceries and what have you. Christmas Day, I was going through my old purses looking for loose change that might have been left behind in my purse to see if I couldn't get enough together for something to get at the local convenience store.
So, not only did you lose money, but you also lost a potential love that you thought was there.
The money was very difficult to lose, very difficult. It's still difficult, but losing that love crushed me.
Mm-hmm.
Losing that family that I thought I didn't have children. So I had this wonderful idea of having this family. We were just going to be happy together. And losing that was much more difficult than losing the money.
Yeah, I mean, from this whole communication, there were repercussions that happened
Yes.
um, in terms of financial and the emotional component of it all. Um, do you feel like any shame of about what happened? I mean, how do you feel overall?
I did feel ashamed in the beginning, which is why it took me so long to tell my sisters.
Uh-huh.
Um, Their reaction was wonderful. They did not make me feel less than I am for doing this. They told me I was very brave for coming forward with the story, which I did not expect them to say.
Yeah, it's very important.
One of them called me and said there was an article in the AARP magazine about fraud, and it gave a phone number, and she suggested that I call it, and I did. And I was the first time I got a sympathetic person on the phone. The man was wonderful. He was a volunteer, but he was a retired detective who had worked fraud during his career.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing he said to me was, "That hammer that you're holding in your hand and hitting yourself over the head with, it's time to put it down."
Yeah.
And that really made an impact because I'm not stupid. I started reading more about these kinds of scams and read a medical doctor fell for this after his wife died. He got involved with the woman and was sending all kinds of money. And I thought, well, if he's really smart, he's a doctor. If he could fall for it, anybody could fall for it. They're so good at what they do, and they have the patience of a saint. They're willing to spend whatever amount of time it takes to get you to feel comfortable, to lure you in, and then start just chipping away at your reserves. So they're very willing to do it that way. Where I think Americans, we want everything yesterday. So we're not willing to
Mm-hmm.
invest that time. So someone who invests that kind of time, I felt comfortable. I trusted him.
Yeah, you have a good heart, and of course you were going to be compassionate and listening, and it worked for you as well. Now,
Yeah.
Kate, if there's one thing you want our viewers to take away from your experience, what would you want them to know?
Not to be embarrassed, not to feel like you've been a victim. You've been with someone who obviously is extremely talented, works at doing this. This is what he does for a living and is trained. There is a whole set. There was someone, I don't know who, someone was sending me email from these supposedly from these two children. So it's more than one person involved. There was the lawyer that called, and there was someone else, a friend who was trying to get Tony out of prison. So it's a team effort, and it's hard to battle yourself, that kind of a setup. So don't be embarrassed. Go for help where you can find it. And
Are
AARP
there
was
any
certainly a good place to start.
wonderful? That's good to hear. Like, were there any initial? I know in the beginning it's an early conversation. You're caught up in what's found in sounding good to you. Was there any when you look back and if is was anything that maybe like, wow, this sounds too good to be true, and but you continue to have that conversation.
Just the pictures that he was sending me, supposedly of him, this
Hmm.
very handsome man in either a white doctor's coat or scrubs. Um, there were he sent me pictures every day. He has quite a collection of pictures of this man that he's using to pose as, and the man was so handsome and supposedly a surgeon, and I kept thinking, what does a handsome surgeon want with me? Why would he fall in love with me? So um but Tony just kept working at that until I felt like he really did
Right.
love me.
And the FBI is aware of this, and I guess they're investigating. And
I called my local police. They didn't answer me back. I called the state police, and I got the woman who said, "Why are you calling here?" Um, then I did call the FBI, and they took my information. Unfortunately, it's like Murphy's Law. Unfortunately, I called the FBI the morning of January 6th. And we all know the afternoon of January 6th, the FBI was pretty busy in Washington with the whole thing that was going on there.
yeah,
So, and they told me there are so many of these scams going on there are thousands of cases that come in weekly. They can't keep up with them. And there's really no way to trace where Tony is, where the money went. It's out of the country. So it's gone. There's really no hope of me getting it back.
Okay. Well, Kate, I need, thank you so much again for joining us today and sharing your story.
Thank
This
you.
is important that others hear your story, and and it's very possible someone can relate with your situation, and that they come
Mhm.
forward and share their experience. Now, for our viewers, to protect yourself from scams, remember to cut off contact right away if you
Yes.
suspect a scam. Don't send money by mail, wire transfer, peer to peer payments such as Venmo or Cash App, or
Hmm.
put money on a gift card for someone with whom you've only had an online relationship. If you have concern you've been scammed, you can reach a trained volunteer at AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline at 877-908-3360. Again, that's 877-908-3360.
Hmm.
If you like more information and resources on fraud and scams from ARP New Jersey, please visit aarp.org/NJ Again, that's aarp.org/NJ If you're interested in learning more about free fun events, special offers, and the latest news from ARP, text the word yes to email to 50757. Again, that's yes to email to 50757 to receive a one time text message from ARP with a link to sign up for emails and learn about what ARP has to offer. Realize that message and data rates may apply.
Hmm.
We hope that you learned something new today about how you can stay safe from fraud and scams, and hope you tune into our Facebook Live next month on Friday, August 5th. Thank you again and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for sharing, Kate.
Thank you.
All the best.